time. Like either my mom was getting beat up or I was by myself or whatever. And so, I started in sports. So I took, like you in baseball, I took to volleyball, but I wanted to do it 100%. So I did junior Olympic volleyball and that whole thing. And those like foundational principles, like led into business, and then also being the class president and things like that. But when I graduated, I was like, I don't want to go to college. Like,
what is up, guys? We're back with another episode of the podcast, The Determined Society. I have with me one hell of a guest. Yes, you guessed it. Once again, bringing you nothing but the best conversations, high-profile individuals, and this woman is no different. She's in a league of her own. 13 years ago, she started her entrepreneurship business with zero experience at all. She went from zero experience to building a 9-figure sales organization and sustaining it over time. She is the host of the ITfactor podcast. Her heart is as big as Montana, ladies and gentlemen. She leads with her heart. She's humble. She absolutely embodies what it means to have the ITfactor. EmilyFord, welcome to the show, my friend.
Yo, thank you, Sean. I'm so excited to connect with you.
Yeah, I'm super excited. We know our mutual contact, Matthew Hedden. We got to throw him some love on the show. We do. He's a good man. He's such a big bear, but like so sensitive. And what I mean by that is I was like, hey, thanks. I messaged Emily and we're going to do a show. He's like, I just want to cry. My world's a cry. So emotional.
He is, but that's a beautiful thing, men. Don't hide your emotion.
I've been talking about that a lot, and just kind of highlighting some of the things within my marriage, right? That in 2022 was just a rough year where I just learned a ton of shit I was doing wrong. And then going into 2023 is like, hey, let's crack open the chest again, and bare my soul to this woman who pledged her life with me. And, it's been an amazing thing. My emotions are open and days are easier.
Yeah, when you're tapped in, totally tapped in. I've had to work on that, being a female businesswoman, not being too masculine. And, it took me a long time to find the right partner in life that just kind of makes, like, he's so strong that allows me to be a little just, more calm. Where, in most past relationships, I was always like the alpha, female, dominant, and you definitely need both regardless. I think the best people embody both sides for sure.
That's a really good point, because when you have had past relationships and they haven't been a strong male lead, right? You have to end up being both, right? So like that water wasn't rising to the top, right? So then now women like you in those relationships they're given that title of having masculine energy.
Exactly. And that's truly not who I was designed to be. I've actually evolved and changed a lot in the past year, 2 years, because I'm not having to play both roles. So exhausting. There's no polarity at all. You feel like you're babysitting whoever you're dating. It's not cool. So once you find that, though, you realize when you open up and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm much softer than I thought I was. And so we need men to step up, and then we need women to also allow it, because if you're a power chick, I tell you what, you got to be, not everyone loves this word, but more submissive.
Yeah, no, it's really funny you mentioned that, because there's two opposite sides of the movement. I don't ever get too political and too whatever on my show, but there are some people out there that are really turned off by an aggressive male. And I don't mean aggressive, for those of you listening, I don't mean aggressive in the sense I'm going to grab you and shake you, but just like a man. I'm going out, I'm a man, and I'm going to do what I do. And there's a big turnoff, right? So men are becoming more nice guys. And, as Bedros and I spoke about on the show the other day, when I was out there, was he's like, these nice guys are the scariest ones out there because they're so fucking passive aggressive.
100%.
So we're creating we are creating a ton of passive aggressive men by being nice guys.
Yeah. And it's
Crazy.
not attractive at all. Like you want
No.
to score a motivated, driven woman. That's not attractive. Like, you know, and also like on the flip side, I believe that like women, when you're with a man like that, like you gotta allow them to be like that, you know? And so there just needs to be that harmony in the relationship. Yeah, we're talking about relationships. Look at it.
Dude, I mean, like, that's why I told you, like, it's very unscripted. Like, this shit, like, we're going to get into things that we didn't even think we were going to get into. But with that being said, I always believe it's always good to kind of hone back in. You know, you and I can talk about other things at any other point in time. But, you know, I'm really fascinated about your journey into what I feel straight up, deep down in my soul, is the hardest freaking business to be in, which is a sales organization, right? And building those types of businesses sometimes are looked down upon, right? By people who don't fucking understand them. But like, yo, that is the hardest thing to do. You know, walk us through the journey of having zero experience in business and then going to scale a 9-figure sustainable business, because there are a lot of people out there that listen to the show that are, well, yes, I would like to do this, but I don't know how. I don't have any experience. Right. Lay it on them, girl.
Yeah, well, it all started in Minnesota, where I'm originally from. I'm in SoCal now, but I was raised by a single mom, the youngest of 3, and raised myself a lot of times. And I have stories that, you know, we'll save for another episode here of growing up. But, you know, I really like had to find a way to get attention and stand out, because I was alone most of the time. Like either my mom was getting beat up or I was by myself or whatever. And so, you know, I started in sports. So I took, you know, like you in baseball, I took to volleyball, but I wanted to do it 100%. So I did junior Olympic volleyball and that whole thing. And those like foundational principles, like led into business, and then also being the class president and things like that. But when I graduated, I was like, I don't want to go to college. Like, what am I going to go to college for? Like this, like, why do you go? My mom was like, you got to do something. And I was like, let me just like get into the workforce. What I ended up doing, because I liked sports so much, I got a certification in massage and I was going to do sports massage. Long story short, I ended up landing a job for like one of the top plastic surgeons in Minnesota. And I'm 19 years old, like literally learning how to run a private practice with wealthy people. I didn't come from wealth. So I'm learning sales. I'm learning rehabilitation. I'm learning how do you treat wealthy people. I'm learning how to turn on the lights and shut them off and all these things. And then I started also competing in fitness because I was bored. And I'm like, what do I do? All my friends are in college. And so I got in a network of women that were like 10, 20 years older than me. And we would compete in Fitness America pageants. And that's where my love for health and wellness came. And then I was pitched with a network marketing opportunity selling a health and wellness product, which I was already taking anyways. I just wasn't getting paid for it. And so when I got pitched it, I was like, this is interesting. You can make money online, make my way sleep. Still wasn't ready for it. So it took her about 7 months. And then it wasn't even like the products or anything like that. It was the lifestyle. It was freedom. Like she could, you know, go work out at noon on a Monday. She could travel. And it was right after the last recession in the United States. So this is 2010. So she was in mortgage banking, got laid off. We were just seeing all these people get exited from their careers. And I said, tell me what's up. Like, really. And I met up with her and she showed me a comp plan with no limits. And I was like, oh, so this is based on work ethic and building teams. Okay, sign me up. And so this is when I was 23. So I signed up, moved in with her, slept on a mattress on the floor, made my first vision board, had an old desk, and literally went to work. Like I ripped the Band-Aid off and I went all in. I'm all in or all out. Like that's just how I roll. And that first year of my life was, looking back, like the most difficult, but also the most exhilarating, because I just went to school. I went to boot camp. I went to like, let's not just read books, but let's try it on. And so I just like set up meetings and I learned how to network. I mean, I
That's
didn't have
amazing.
Instagram. I literally, I would like, what can I do? What's free? I would go to local chamber of commerce. I would contact, like my friends were like not motivated. So I go to their parents. Like I just went at it. Okay. And that's really, you know, I think what most people don't do. They don't do the work. They read about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Philosophy is
Yeah.
cool.
That's it.
Yeah. Like philosophy is great, but there's a whole different substance when you actually do it.
Dude, I freaking love that because, you know, at the end, it's like most people just don't do the work. And I don't feel, and this is going to kind of mess with some people's heads here. Okay. But follow me. People aren't doing the work, but I don't think it's because they don't want to do the work. Not all of them. Some of them are lazy shitheads that just want to talk about what they want to do and never do it.
Right.
But there's a lot of people out there that want to do the work, but they can't get past the 6 inches between their ears, their own head. What would you tell these people that are, because I work with some MLM companies that, you know, for coaching and kind of mindset sales stuff.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of mindset like limitations. I mean, it is rampant in just in that business in general. What are some of the tips and tricks that you, not even a trick, but like some tips that you can give the listeners that if they are active in one of these organizations, that they can push past some barriers and just get it done?
Yeah, well, anything. I mean, I also like train and speak at real estate conventions, like all sales. Literally, like let's just talk about your identity. Okay, my identity. I came from money doesn't grow on trees, hand me down clothes. I mean, I didn't see the ocean until I was a senior in high school. Like, you know, so it's identity. And your identity is made up of so many things, especially your environment, the law of the environment. And so what I did, and I didn't really understand I was doing it, but I did total immersion. So I'm like, I'm literally going to throw myself into the fire. Like I'm going to surround myself with, you know, people that are 10 years older than me that are actually doing the thing. They've actually done it. And I'm going to have some massive accountability. And what happened was because I was all in, because I burned the boats, like it forced me to step up. It forced me to perform because I didn't have a nest egg to fall back on. I didn't have some wealthy husband to take care of me. I like literally, sometimes it's the biggest blessing when your back's against the wall, because that's when you create some of the greatest work in your life. And so, you know, I think for a lot of people, like they just haven't hit, like they haven't tapped into that desire that's like, if I don't do this, what is going to happen? You know, like they just don't go there. And a lot of times because they're just not in tune with themselves. And so, you know, so many things I could tell you, but first, number one is your environment and it's immersing yourself in it. And like, it's like, how bad do you want it? There's so many amateur everything, amateur baseball players, amateur realtors, amateur network marketers. This is why most people never make it, is they never go pro because they never match their work ethic with what it actually takes to go pro.
Dude, seriously, like minute 13 of just dropping bombs. Like, you know, like the coolest thing, Emily, is like, this is something that a lot of young people don't understand. And even people into my age at 44 right now, they may have kids, they may have, you know, a wife and things like that. Like you capitalize on an amazing opportunity when you're 23 years old.
Yeah.
And I want to highlight that and acknowledge you for that, because you literally moved in with somebody, slept on their couch or wherever it was, and literally put yourself in the environment where this person was at where you wanted to go. Right. And at a young age of 23, and you didn't realize this, but you were literally going on the biggest self-development journey without even knowing what the freak you signed up for.
100%.
And so how has the work, the deep work on you, led you to be able to sustain a 9-figure sales organization? Because guess what, guys, they're listening. That's not all she does now. She's a speaker. She's a badass podcast host. She's a branding coach. She does so many different things out there for other people. Like that other business is now sustaining.
Yeah.
Like,
yeah. Thank you for that. And when I got in and at first I was like, okay, you figure out all the little things, right? You're like, okay, I can sell the vision, got that down. Okay. I can close someone on a thing. I got that down. And then you're like, oh, okay, if I really want this to grow, I need to duplicate leadership and I need to like teach other people to do what I do. Okay, now this is leadership. Now I got to figure out leadership. And so what I did is I studied leadership. And, as our friend John Maxwell says, everything rises and falls on leadership. So knowing that I got to go first, and I just had that mindset with absolutely everything of like, okay, I literally need to be the one that does it. If I'm going to tell them to do it, I got to do it first. So always by leading by example, I'm massive on that for sure. But for me, like just knowing there's no limits to human potential and really taking massive responsibility for everything I do. I always say there's no justifying, complaining, or blaming in my world. Like it's literally like, I got to take the responsibility. I have taken it so seriously with my own development. So that's the first thing I do every day, always, is I'm always like, what's the next thing? What's the next room I need to get in? What's the next book I need to read? What's the next spiritual breakthrough? So just being super in tune has allowed me to continue to grow and grow and grow and grow and grow, because it's literally so important to me. It's like oxygen, because I know that God put no limits on our human potential. So I'm like, who's going to cap that? I'm the one that's going to cap that. So I've just stayed super in tune with that. And I literally, kid you not, every quarter of my life, especially year, but even looking at the month, I'm like, what am I doing this month that is going to cause me to shake shit up a little bit? And I mean, for myself, like a little, like you did a massive interview the other day, like that makes you grow 10 times, not only your exposure and the experience, but just you having to step up to interview one of the world's best. Like that's what I've tried to do as well.
Yeah, I shook shit up and I killed that shit, right? Yeah. And it's funny because like you're saying, and I'm just like looking at you just smiling because, there's a lot of people that will wake up just in general, whether it's sales or just being a mother, a father, or multi-level marketing, whatever you want to call it, entrepreneurship. They'll wake up in the morning and they'll start telling themselves a story, reasons why they can't do shit, right? Well, I can't, that's not going to work because of X, Y, Z. So they get this very low vibrational state, right? Where they're just killing their energy the rest of the day. It doesn't matter how talented they are. Nothing is ever going to come their way of significance for them to reach the next level. But like you're sitting there in the morning, the first thing that you do every single day is wake up and go, what's the next book I'm going to read? What's the next big room I need to be in? Yeah. Like, dude, these are questions that may seem very basic to you or myself, but like I ask myself every single day, where's the next opportunity? Yeah. Who do I need to be in the room with? Who do I need to have the conversation with? And most importantly, okay, how do I make it happen? What relationships do I have that can lead? Like that's the things. I just love that because that is a different conversation, and I feel that so many people now are having these negative conversations, these negative back and forth in their mind that they're not understanding the power of just taking massive amounts of accountability and saying, okay, it's not about this isn't going to work. It's like my attitude isn't working. So like I need to change this up so I can move forward. There's not enough of that going on. Right?
No. I always like, we could talk about every negative emotion, anxiety, blame, comparison, resentment, like you could write them all out. And on the other side of that, what's on the other side? Activity, action. So action neutralizes negative emotion.
Every time, every freaking time.
Every time. So even when I have a moment, a day, a setback, whatever, Like, I just go, what is the thing that I can do right now?
We're back. We had some technical difficulties. That's the damn interwebs. So Emily was talking about all these negative emotions that we may have throughout the day that kind of impede us from moving forward in our life, in our business, our fitness, our relationships, whatever. Now, and on the other side of it is action. And so let's allow you to, go after this now when we talk about action.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, what I was sharing is it's normal. Everyone has negative emotions. No matter what level you get to, so you're going to get a call that pisses you off. You're going to get a post that pisses you off. You're going to have a business partner do something weird. Like, it's this thing called life. Get used to it. Right. So what I always do though, is make sure that I'm taking action to the thing that's actually going to grow the thing. And on the other side of that is a tremendous amount of dopamine that literally feels amazing. And then now you're on an upward spiral versus a downward spiral. The downward spiral is all the negative emotions, which also is a low frequency. And so I believe, like, my mission in life is to literally keep raising my frequency and to keep it up as much as I possibly can. And so if you're aware and the things that cause anxiety, the things that cause doubt, the things that, it's like, cool, be aware of it, but then address it much faster so you don't have to camp out there all day, all week, all month. I've seen great people like literally let things sabotage their whole career because they just cannot move on. And I always talk about the attributes of great leaders, and one of them is moving on, and so that's where it's like, I am so clear of my day, what I'm doing. I study my calendar. Like, I know what I need to do to move my mission forward. And yes, things will interfere, but for the most part, I go back to what I need to do and not what the world wants me to do. And, I just don't bow down to other people's excuses or, even if they want me to do certain things, if it's not in alignment with my mission, I say no. And so that's a lot of salespeople, they maybe need to go hit some quotas, but their buddy will call them, let's go to happy hour. It's like, well, are you going to go to your comfort zone, or are you going to like actually close some deals and, make a difference in your family? It's all the choice.
No, it's a great point because, this is another great conversation and that has bits and pieces from my last interview in it. And there's a reason why this is coming up, right? Is, we're talking about action and, we also have these emotions, and the emotions where you're lacking confidence or you're that, POS dad that's sitting on the couch and you're frustrated, you're getting mad at the dog for breathing, your kids are irritating you and your wife's pissing you off, and you think it's everybody in the room but the reality is it's your fault. On the other side, like, those are your emotions, and on the other side is you breaking your word to yourself every single day.
Right.
You can't control your diet, you can't get in the fucking gym, you can't read the book, you can't do this, you can't do that because you're not allowing yourself to, right? So it's so funny that these emotions that we have on a day-to-day basis are easier to fix than we actually realize as a human being. And so, and some of them are tough, right? Like, some of them are really tough to fix. And I love how we're going down the rabbit hole of, personal development here. There's a reason we're doing, and I think it's what the world needs, because there's a lot of people out there using excuses instead of performing action, right? Yeah. And so the biggest one I hear, all right, is I just don't know how to do it. I don't understand the how. What would you tell somebody that says that to you?
Well, first of all, you got to figure out why you want to do something, and it's got to be like certain. So I'll just give you an example. Like, I built one company, but then every day for a long time, when I was in my prayer time, just talking to God, which is like all throughout the day, like, I was just hearing like this whisper, and it was just like, you need to move forward. You need to make a bigger impact. It's time, so many things. And I'm like, what does that mean? What does that mean? And it's like, And then people are portals, and God sends messages through people. And
Mm-hmm.
there would just be so many random things like, hey, I know you do network marketing, but like I have this huge team. Can you come train them on this or that or whatever? There's just so many things. And finally, I'm like, I'm going to really look at this and where I'm at in my life. And I'm like, yes, I must move forward. I must build this new brand. I must do this show. I must. And so I didn't know how. Like, I've built sales teams. But when the why is big enough, the why, because it's about being obedient. So for me, I'm talking more about my calling in life. And it's not even that I necessarily wanted to do all these things. It's that I'm called to do all these other things.
Yeah.
And so I'm being obedient to that call. And so I'm like, okay, everything is figure outable. Like, let's find a way. And so it's amazing how the universe conspires in your favor when you're like, I am going to figure this out. Suddenly people will pop in front of you. Suddenly, but you have to have the frequency of, I'm going to figure this out. Like, I'm going to do this. And half the time, I think it's the front end. People don't profess, I'm going to do this. It's, oh, I kind of want to do that. I thought about it. Nobody wants to do anything with anybody that thinks about it. I'm sorry, they don't. Like, I want to join somebody in business who's certain. I want to buy from someone who's certain. I don't want to try anything on with somebody who's half-assed. And so that's half of it, is your posture. And then it's being resourceful and asking people. Like, I got really good in my first business. If someone wasn't into it, I'm like, great, who do you know who is? And I would ask for referrals, like literally asking. And you would be so shocked at how many people want to help. It's like, oh, I want to be a speaker. Who's a great speaking coach? Oh, I want to, get on more stages. How do I do that? How does anyone, and do you just start asking, being resourceful, ask in quiet, ask in public, whatever. And I feel like you can take that next step, the how, if you will. And then, I am very deeply passionate about learning skills. Yes, I'm quote unquote a motivational speaker, but I'm also a skill trainer. Like, I will teach you how to do the dang thing. And, I think way too many people are just like reading or watching inspirational stuff, but they're not actually learning like psychology of sales or psychology of business and branding. And, like, I pay attention, like I post on Instagram, what goes off, what doesn't, what resonates, what doesn't, like, in my sales process, I would pay attention, like, this person's totally tuning me out. Okay, I'm not speaking to their love language right now, and it's like, you got to learn the skills, and skills take time. Like, they take time. Those reps, like, this, being a former baseball player,
Yeah. I mean, you got to get them in, and you have to focus on the next rep. You can't go backwards. You have to focus on executing that next rep as best as you possibly can. Eventually it turns into muscle memory. And now you're off to the races and you're executing it on stage or wherever, at the closing table. It's really great that you're talking about the calling and, learning the skills, because, I truly feel as well that I am following a purpose. Like, I did not in a million years think that, 3 years ago, let's just be honest. 3 years ago, I didn't think that I'd be sitting on recordings until 9 p.m. tonight and not hanging out with my kids.
Right.
And there's been times where I'm like, this is a lot, this is a ton. And, but then I remember, like, the next day I wake up, I'm like, no, this is my purpose. This is the higher power telling me, like, this is what you're meant to do, Sean. You've always wanted to do this stuff. You're able to make an impact. You're doing it. And I have to be obedient to that. Right. Because that's what I was called to do.
Yeah.
The other part of it is learning skills, and I really want to nail down on the learning the skills, because there's a lot of coaching programs out there. There's a lot of gurus, and there's a lot of people that are just sitting there on a call and they're just, feeding you, like cool saying after cool saying, motivation, but people aren't benefiting because they're not actually learning any skills.
Right.
There's a difference, right? I can tell somebody, you need to go, here's how to build your podcast. Go get EmilyFord on your show. Just go. Like, you could do it. You're awesome. You're the next big thing. That is not coaching. That is not coaching, right? Like, there's skills involved. Like, you did not know me.
Right.
Hey, we have a mutual friend, Matthew Hedden. It's my boy. He says you're amazing, speaks highly of you, would love to have you on my show. And now we have this connection through someone we both care about, right? That's a skill.
That's a skill.
But people, so I don't feel enough coaches are teaching the skill.
No.
And there's not enough people for hell no. Right.
No. There's and there's so many people teaching things that they have never actually done. And like that's the part where I think it's the difference between philosophy versus substance. Mm-hmm. And like when you've done it, there's a different knowing, KNOW. Mm-hmm. So, with coaches and, if people are listening to this, like you need to like really understand what you're paying for, who you're paying for, what you're paying for, and what's the method behind the madness. Because there may be 1% of people that'll get on a program and they hear things and then they go activate because there's somebody that is insanely driven and that's just how they are. But most people, they need to know the how. Like walk me through and then match, marry the skills with accountability. And now you've got a winning recipe, so, and make sure it's something you actually want to build. This is the other thing. I just feel like people are doing a million things, getting nowhere fast. I'm like, what are you working on? It's like the list this long. And I'm like, man, I didn't, I would have never made my first $1 million a year, like doing that. I had to drive the line and go deep in one thing.
It's funny because I was talking to multiple people last week. It's not any one person. So if you're listening to my show, I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about like 5 of you fuckers. They said, I said, I think I'm going to pivot. And I'm going to build a podcast coaching business because I built this podcast from the ground up with my own 2 hands. I'm a one-man show. Quite literally one-man show. Recently have a good buddy coming on, Brad, and is helping me out, reach out to people and, for sponsorships, etc. But, for the most part, it's just been me. And so I say to these people, I'm going to teach others how to do it. They're like, it's funny. I look at your page. I don't see that from you. I see you as the motivation and the determination guy. I go, what fucking page you watching? Have you seen the guests on my show?
Right.
I'm not paying backdoor money for people to be on my show. Like, I was just out in California with someone big. Like, I can teach people how to get and do these things. Right. But the bottom line is they have to be willing to do the work. Right. And then there's actual skill involved. There's psychology involved of getting, people on your show and then, building something, but you should never listen to somebody else telling you what you should do. Like you should listen to yourself. You've got a relationship with the higher power. Like, what do you feel you need to be doing? And so for me, it was apparent. And especially when that interview was done, it was like, okay, yeah, this is the direction. Yeah. Burn the boats. Hernan Cortez, that motherfucker.
Confirmation. That's so good. Yeah. Like you're trying it on, you're in tune. And that's the thing. Like you do need to try some things on. If you're in the discovery phase, I always tell people like, let's explore. Okay. And like, and then try it on, like I tried on like, one-on-one coaching. I'm like, no, that's not for me. Like I need to do, I'm more of a group person, know? And so again, though, the only way you ever know that kind of thing is by trying it on. Going through that and seeing like what lights your soul on fire and what are you going to want to do at least 5 years, 10 years. Like,
I feel that. It's funny because like we've gone through that same journey. I've tried on the one-on-ones. I still have some left and I love them. Right. I love my people, but groups also are more, you can impact more people at one time. Right. But the biggest one for me is, what do I want to be doing 5-10 years from now? Talking to people about podcasts. Cause this is my baby. I love this. I'm passionate about, I'm in the zone with this. It's like, there's nothing like it to me. Where else in the world can you have a great conversation with badass people that you've never met before, uninterrupted?
I mean, it's the best. I always tell people that. I was talking to a friend and he was like, so how's like your show going? He's like, isn't that a lot of responsibility? Like, I started laughing. I'm like, yeah, but it's like the best kind of responsibility. First of
Yeah.
all, I look at this from many facets. It's a business, but it's a way to add value to people's lives for free, where
Mm-hmm.
they can like listen for free. So
Yeah.
simultaneously, you grow the pod, you grow your social media. But then to your point, I'm like, where else would I sit on the couch with Ed Milet for an hour, like literally getting a coaching session for myself, or extracting greatness out of some of the best people in the world in different arenas. Of the founder of Dry Bar, Allie
Mm,
Webb, like how she built that whole company and then sold it. Like, where else would I really do that?
right.
And
Mm-hmm.
I always tell people as well, I'm like, if you want to speak, like, what areas are you getting practice in? Having a podcast is the perfect way to do that. There's just
Yeah.
so
It's what
many
you're
different.
doing every day,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
To your point, you said about 8 minutes ago, look for somebody that's actually done it. Like, most coaches out there in the ethers are doing things they haven't done before. Like, guys, you're out there, work with somebody in the trenches that
Yeah.
you see doing the work every single day. And make no mistake, there is a lot of work involved. I had someone recently come up and tell me, like, hey man, who you paying? Like, who's connecting with all these people? I said, like, dude, what? Like, I wish it were that freaking easy.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
not. Like,
Yeah. Yep. It takes a skill, and the highest like net worth people are the most skilled in people.
mhm, yeah.
And so like learning that skill set is invaluable. Like what I learned in my first business, it's like I can go out there and do anything now because I built the main part of it, which is communicating with people and influencing people.
Yeah. And then the brand, right?
And the
Like,
brand. Yeah.
it's Emily. That's like, dude, that should be trademarked. It's Emily. That's like, come on. That's a cool brand, right?
Thank you.
So, like, yeah, no, absolutely. I can't believe we've been going for almost 42 minutes. Like,
I know.
flies by. Flies by. Let me ask you a very, very important question, because this is the Determined Society podcast. And we've been talking a lot about, some of the things that you've had to go through in building your business as far as personal development. But what makes you determined?
Mm. Wow. What makes me determined? I
Go
think,
deep on it. Go deep on it. I'm like,
you know,
what some adversity, like that one moment, that inflection point in your life, you're like, you had to dig your heels in, and like, that's why you're at where you're at right now.
well, I think it's a combination of so many different things. I mean, I do have like moments that, I remember early in my career, someone saw my vision board and I wrote myself out a check for $1 million. Like, and the girl was like, well, there was two girls at the apartment and they were like giggling and they're like, do you think you can like actually do that, not going to college? And I was impressionable at that time. I was 23. And
Mm-hmm.
so I was like, it was like little chips and chip. And there's been a lot of chip. If you're in any kind of build anything, you're going to have that rejection. And,
Mm-hmm.
it just forced me to kind of go, okay, watch me. Like just
Yeah.
watch. And, even with family, like my, God bless them, my other siblings, like they went to college and did the other thing. And like, I'm always the unicorn child that is creating stuff and doing other things and just having dinners, family dinners where like we'll talk about, my sister's kids in her classroom because she's a teacher, or my brother's plane that he's flying because he's a pilot. But like, there's not really a lot of questions being asked about my career. Like, why is that?
Mm-hmm.
And like, so I think a little of it comes from like, watch me whip, watch me nay nay. I'm going to prove something to you right now. I think a little bit of that.
Oh
Like
shit.
now that I'm more over all that crap. Like,
Right.
come on, I don't like that was early in my career. I think now I'm so determined to create something, an essence of something that doesn't really exist.
Mm,
And that's why the it factor is so important to me, because all I see is copycats everywhere. There's no artistry. Like, what happened to artistry? What
dude.
happened to like creating something? What happened? Like, I just see so many carbon copies. And so Like, I am all about creating something out of nothing that will make an impact, whether it's a kid in LA that, sees something I do, or they come to one of my events, or it's a business executive that has completely lost themselves. Like, I just want to leave an imprint so they can live a better life. And to me, like, that gets me determined for sure. Like, I mean, it makes me wake up early, stay up late, and just putting it all together and just seeing how it pops off. And like, it's just so fun. And I'm just following, honestly, like I said, I'm following what God wants me to do with my life. And that obedience factor is coming in. And it's just like, I feel like when you live in that, like, he honors that. And so that's what makes me determined. And also to, like, honestly, I think the thing that really irritates me the most is like the disruption in people's souls, like how people don't know how great they are, and the suffering. And because I came from that and broke through it, and I've done so much healing and so much work, and it's like, I feel it is my obligation to help other people in that regard. And it's like, I've been blessed to get on the other side of it from doing hard work. Like, let me give people that freedom that they deserve.
So eloquently stated. Unbelievable. Thank you. Guys, listen, that right there was worth the admission for listening to the whole show. I mean, the whole show's been great. So many great key points were made, but that last monologue by you, Emily, was absolutely impactful and powerful. Starting with the chip on your shoulder, that's very powerful if you can control it, right? For me, I still have it. I'm not too far removed from my dad looking me in the eye 4th of July. Like, it was the last time I ever spoke to him, by the way, by choice. Hey, boy, how's that little podcast you got? You fucking famous yet? All right, bitch. Okay. And that's the thing, guys. So those of you listening, like, really, we all have people like that in our life. What 100%. We need to do is we take those emotions, and on the other side, there's action. So we take and we create that action. So, I want my listeners to be able to connect with you, to possibly learn a little bit more about what you do and how you could help them. How can they find you, and how can they best support you?
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Well, Instagram at It's Emily, for sure. It's Emily.com. And I have the ITfactor show, which is podcast as well. But I would say, if you're looking, I do events, total immersive events, where, like, it's not just like speaker after speaker and you sit there all day. Like, no, I have you up and down. We do the skills, you go through stuff. I do that with my partner, where you learn how to optimize your influence, sales, I teach branding, all that. And so there's my events that I have. The next one is coming up in Southern California. And then I also have my program where I teach you how to brand, speak, and sell. So I have anywhere from therapists in there to real estate investors to network marketers to optometrists, like, you name it. So just reach out.
Very cool. Very cool. And she's really kind, guys. This is not a show. She's one of the sweetest people I've had the pleasure of meeting in this space. And, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. But probably the most important question that I have for you is, how can I best support you?
Oh my gosh, just this friendship. I mean, really, I think it's just checking in, supporting each other. Hey, you should connect with this person. I'll do the same.
Perfect.
Because I know it does feel lonely, and you're not alone. Like, so having people in your corner that are like, hey, check this out. We're in a similar world. So
we are, and we all need to band together, and not we.
That's right.
And it's so funny because people think, like, well, aren't you in competition with all these people? Like, I'm like, nah, man. Like, we're completely different people. I'm not everybody's flavor of ice cream, and neither are they.
Right.
So we help each other. But I'm super bummed that I wasn't in California long enough to to meet up with you and possibly meet Jake.
I
I
know.
know we were really close in proximity, but hell, maybe I come out there at one point and
I was gonna say
get
I'll
that.
give you a. Are we still recording? No.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, it's fine.
Okay. Okay. I was just gonna say I'll give you a VIP ticket. Matthew will be at our event.
Ooh, that'd be kind of cool. We'll talk offline about the dates because I do have some travel in February. So let's connect on it. But yeah, so anyway, guys, we're going to close it out. And I just want to say, if you got anything out of this show, share it to the socials, tag us both. Hers is at It's Emily on Instagram, and mine is at the Sean French. It'll be in the show notes. Subscribe, rate, and review.
That's right.
That's your assignment. All right, y'all. Yeah, exactly. So thank you all for listening, and we'll chat soon. Peace.